Hey guys, this is Anthony Morganti from anthonymorganti.com, and this is episode 171 of Photo Critiques. And in this episode, I'm pleased to critique the work of Lee Deutsch. Lee sent me in some really nice shots. This first one, this sky is spectacular. Very well done in the sky. This is 1/60th of a second, f6.3, ISO 200. The settings are okay. What I would suggest, though, when you're doing landscapes is you're at f6.3 that's a little bit wide open. So if you could bring it down just a little bit. I mentioned in previous critiques, lenses are at their sharpest when they're 2 to 4 stops up from wide open. So in this case at 18 millimeters, this lens is wide open at 3.5. 2 to 4 stops would be around f8, f11, somewhere in there. So if you dial in f8, you're assured your lens is going to be probably at its sharpest, f8, f11. Some you can try experiment with it, and you'll be at your sharpest. Now, as I mentioned before, that doesn't give you the greatest depth of field. It just gives you the sharpest, crispest picture that your lens can produce. And I suggest you do that on these landscapes. Try to keep it around there. And you might have to use tripod sometimes if it's really dark. Still you could have handheld this. You might have to boost ISO a little bit at times, although I'd rather you didn't do that. Try to keep your ISO as low as possible. But this is a really nice shot. Now, one thing to keep in mind, this is really like a backdrop. And when I say backdrop, this is like a beautiful background to a subject. We don't have really a strong subject in this shot. We have the beautiful sky. Now, many times I mentioned you don't need a subject in some shots. Some shots have geometric shapes, and those are kind of, will occupy the viewer's brain, so they're not searching for a distinct subject. Sometimes we have color contrast, we have light, shadows, we could have, textures, and those things will amuse our brain. But many times, particularly with sunsets, a sunset by itself doesn't, a viewer will look at it and goes, that's gorgeous, but they will really think it's super gorgeous if you have a distinct subject. Now in this case, you did a nice job. The leading lines of the clouds, the way the clouds are aligned, are leading to this tree, but the tree is kind of small. But I know there's no cactus around here, but I saw pictures, similar photographs of the Southwest in the US when there's sunsets with these tremendous clouds where they'd have a big cactus, in the frame somewhere, in the foreground, silhouetted. So the cactus is the subject and the beautiful sky is the backdrop. So try to work your scenes to try to incorporate a subject, but keep everything else the same that you're doing, because you're doing great. This shot too, it's a beautiful sunset, beautiful sky, very nice processing, but there's not really a distinct subject beside the beautiful sunset in the shot. Now you got to work the scene. We have some lines here of these roads or paths. You could maybe incorporate these as a leading line or a diagonal line somehow and still get the sunset in the shot and some of the clouds in the shot. There's kind of an interesting looking tree right here, a little bit I could see. So maybe you could get down with a wide angle lens and get this tree in the shot somehow. With the sunset, and have this tree more dominant in the shot. That would help a lot. As I zoomed in too, I said there's quite a bit of noise in the shot. We tend to get those when shots are a little underexposed. So the Lightroom has really good noise reduction, and you go in the detail tab, and you really just normally just got to pull it up just a little, and you'll get rid of a lot of the noise. I don't know if you guys could see on the video. There's before and there's after. If you look in here, you'll see before, after. But many times we like to add noise as a creative element to our photographs. So it's up to you, but don't be afraid to use the noise reduction in Lightroom. It does a really nice job. This shot too, great panorama, technically very well done. You're at f20. I wouldn't recommend going that far down or closed on the aperture. Like I mentioned, f8 to f11, try to keep it in there, and you'll get really a crisp, sharp shot. But in this case, there's nothing. I mean, we have this great sky, and technically it's a great photo as far as the technicalities of the camera. 1/60th of a second, it's very steady, it's very in focus. We just need a subject, something our eyes could resolve on. We need to maybe, if we could, incorporate these paths somehow into this subject. I think it would help a lot. This, I consider this a fine art shot. F of 22, you'll get this burst effect I always mention. If you were wide open on this lens, like F of 3.5, you just have a glow here, a big, orb glowing without this like burst effect. So if you guys ever want to incorporate a burst effect on pointed light sources like the sun or street lamps, things like that, close down your aperture. Usually around f13 it will start happening really good. So f22, that's pretty small, but you did a nice job, and like I said, I consider it an art shot. In the future you might want to consider not getting little things bleeding in like this tree, and this looks like this top of a house over here. But again, like I mentioned, it's a nice exposure. This shot's nice, great shot. This is one of the best shots of the moon I've seen. And guys, the moon isn't very hard to photograph. If anyone's ever wants to try, you just need a tripod to handhold and shoot the moon. It just comes out blurry. Even though you're shooting at 1/125th of a second at f11, which is crazy. A lot of people don't think the moon is that bright, but it really is. And in this case, Lee used a 55 to 300 millimeter lens at 300 millimeters. So if you guys got a 300 millimeter lens, put it on, zoom it all the way in, get your tripod pointed at the moon. You could shoot it on shutter priority or aperture priority, whatever you want. I would shoot on aperture priority, and I would go around f8, f11 like I normally do, and just shoot away, and you'll get a pretty fast shutter speed, and it will come out really nice. Now, this shot was cropped. The moon will never be this big at 300 millimeters, even when it's, at the time of the year when it's at the closest it is to the Earth, and the correct place in the horizon where it's at its largest. It's not going to be this big. So you have to crop it to get it like this. But you could see it retained a lot of detail. Very nice shot. It's a cool shot. That's kind of one of those shots that can get you thinking, like, what is this all about? It's got some, these headstones. It's got the old flag going the wrong way here, but that's okay. It's kind of beat. It's a good shot. I think it's a really nice shot. Kind of an art shot too. Kind of gets your mind thinking of what's going on, and that's what photography should do. I mentioned many times, when people look at our photographs, we don't necessarily want them to think, we want them to feel. And I think sometimes you could look at this one and you might be thinking, but you're really feeling. You're feeling like, what is this all about? It's a great shot. This is really a nice shot. I consider this a fine art shot too, but it's very well done. And in this case, we have the tree limbs in this very kind of, gray sky, but the subject are the birds. And we have a subject, something we could resolve on. We're looking at the birds our eyes could resolve on. So it's very well done. Very well done. I like this shot a lot. And this shot here is just, kind of a macro of the icicle. Technically it's well done. Very well done. This is how you learn how to use your camera, shots like this. And you just keep going and, work in the icicle scene and see what you could do. And I think that's the last one for Lee. Thank you very much, Lee, for sharing your work with us. I really do appreciate it. And guys, if you have time, go over to my website, anthonymorganti.com. I have all kinds of photography stuff over there. And I'd really appreciate it if you went to YouTube, though, and subscribed to my YouTube channel. And that's it for now. I'll talk to you guys soon.